Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. This episode is a little bit different to some of our previous ones, but also a bit the same. This guest is, he's a first degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he is also the man behind Old Man Strength. So we know that we have lots of our listeners who are masters athletes who are in the potential old man category. And we're looking forward to getting to know this gentleman. He hails from New Zealand, but he is currently he now lives in the Sunshine Coast, and he is Chris Kahi. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
No worries. Thanks for having us, guys. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Chris. Very proud to say both Kim and myself are representing the Old Man Strength T-shirts, mate. Your apparel, mate, before we go right down the path of the Jiu-Jitsu and how this all happens, I think my T-shirt is probably 2 years old. Bought it over at World Masters in Vegas. I've got a few. I love all of them. And the quality of these are bloody superb, mate. So first up, congratulations on the Old Man Strength T-shirts. And now that I'm wearing it, I've got the old man part. I just wonder when the strength kicks in. If you can give me that. Is it sewing in somewhere? Am I missing something? What's happening?
No, you've definitely got it, mate. You just got to bring it out.
I'm not going to lie. My husband was a big push to get you on. Who's also the editor of this podcast, Theo. He loves your brand, and this is obviously his rashi that I'm wearing. And he wanted me to first of all bring up, and he's got a video of it. I guess I could share it if for anyone that's listening, where he squatted 310 kilos in one of your T-shirts. So
nice.
Theo, I think would actually rather be here talking to you than me, but I'm here in his place.
I think we're pretty sure we shared that. Yeah, I do remember that coming across. But back on the T-shirt side of things, it's a pretty terrible business model, is it, when they're still 2 years old and holding up pretty well? So, unfortunately, it's a terrible business model, but it's something that we try and focus on, and everything we do with Old Man Strength is obviously, our two pillars are around quality and customer service. And so obviously we've nailed that part. So that's great.
Yeah. And mate, you nailed the service. I really remember you guys being over in Vegas, and I walked past and I saw the stand, and number one, the stand looks beautiful. Like, you really have a fantastic range. But you know what it's like, mate. You get some Kiwis and Aussies, and you start to have a chat, and all of a sudden there's a group of people, standing around wondering what you're talking about and what that accent is. So I think the customer service and the quality of what you're doing definitely works, mate. So congratulations on that stuff. It's very, very good.
Yeah, thanks. It was always a good time, those trips going to the Masters and meeting everybody, and exactly what you said. The Yanks loved us because we were something different, and the people that always came with us on those trips were sort of had the gift of the gab too, and so the Yanks just loved us and ate us up. So we missed those trips. Hopefully we'll get back again one day. We first started going to the Worlds in 2017, I think was our first trip, and I think when we went then it was like maybe 8 vendors. I think it was tiny, a lot of competitors. But vendors there wasn't a lot of vendors, and then over the years it's just morphed into what it is today. So it's a tough market, but hopefully we'll get back there one day.
Yeah, I think the other thing with that too, Chris, is it is a big market over there now. But you guys were super popular. I think you kind of hit that market for those mastered athletes as well. So especially all those American masters athletes who are on all the gear in the world.
100%. Yeah, we met some monsters, that's for sure.
So tell us, Chris, about the beginning of Old Man Strength. Like, was it, did the jiu-jitsu side of it come first, or did the strength side come first? What happened?
Yeah, it was 100% the jiu-jitsu side of it. Our roots obviously stem from that, and it all sort of started, myself and another guy called Matt Rennie. We trained together at the time, and he was quite high up at EY, and quite a bit of a heavy hitter and in terms of business and that. And so we trained together, and he sort of said to me one day, we caught up for lunch, and he said, I'm thinking about starting this brand. I said, oh, yeah, okay, cool. What's it called? And he said, Old Man Strength. I said, yeah, cool. He'd got a logo done for it, and he showed me over lunch. And the logo, the best way I can sort of represent it, it looked like a bonds guy carrying a log. And I said to him, I go, what's with the log? And he goes, oh, I don't know. It's, it's strong. That's what strong people do. And I go, he goes, what do you think? And I was pretty intimidated by Matt at the time and didn't really want to give him my feedback, but I sort of said to him, I said, oh, look, mate, I think it's pretty fucking rubbish, to be honest. And he goes, well, do you think you can do better? And I said, yeah, I do. So I went away and I designed, obviously, the logo that you see there today, which is the ball with the OMS in it, and the Russian underneath. And the backstory behind the Russian comes from myself and a couple of the other boys at the time. So when I started this, I was 34, I think. And I was one of the older guys at the gym at that time. 34 is not that old, but I was one of the older guys. And we always used to sort of joke around and be like, oh, you're strong like bull, like just have this joke. And so when I started designing this, I put that into it. And that underneath in the Russian says strong like bull in Russian. And so that's where the bull came from. That's the whole backstory of that. So, and then fast forward, we've been going since 2016. And when we first started, as I mentioned, heavily jiu-jitsu focused, a lot of jiu-jitsu designs. And we got a lot of the powerlifting, weightlifting, CrossFit community sort of reaching out to us and saying, well, why is this only for jiu-jitsu? And we're like, well, not really. It's, So we started to do other designs specific for them. And then probably about 4 years ago, I think we just decided to go more broad-based to cater for everybody and not sort of be so niche, because at the time, I started jiu-jitsu in 2009, and, when we started the business 2016, jiu-jitsu was sort of still on the rise. It was popular, but nowhere near as popular as it is today. And when you're trying to target a market for guys doing jiu-jitsu kind of over 40, 35, 40, it's a pretty tiny sort of market, So we decided to sort of branch out a bit more and become a bit more broad-based. But in the last probably 6 months, we've had a lot of people come back to us saying, why aren't you doing rashis? Why aren't you doing this? And we've kind of gone back to our roots a tiny bit. So
have you seen your T-shirts out there on, people where you're like, oh, I wouldn't think that person would be wearing it? Or, have you seen sort of somebody promoting it or wearing it, that really caught your eye?
Do you mean demographic wise, or do you mean like famous people?
Yeah, like whether it's a famous person or like, we talk about jiu-jitsu being niche, like, but maybe someone from another niche sport, or something like that.
Yeah, look, probably more in the strongman community. That's pretty, we've seen a lot of people sort of picking up in the strongman, sort of like world's strongest man and that side of things. The guys who compete in that is pretty big. It's kind of funny, you ask that question about, like, do I see it on some people? I see it out a lot. And some of the people I see it on, they're not necessarily fit or strong looking, but that doesn't necessarily matter, right? Because what does strength mean to someone? It could be, they could have beaten cancer. They could have an internal battle. They could have mental health. They could have whatever it is. Strength to them means something to them. So we take it as the physical, having that jiu-jitsu background, but other people take it differently. So yeah, I've seen it on all types, all shapes, all sizes. Yeah, everything.
And Chris, tell us about the really early days of starting up the business. Was there challenges for you? Like how did you get it kind of up and running?
Yeah, it was funny. So when we first started, we started advertising into the state. Well, we started advertising everywhere, but the States is what picked up. Pre-COVID, we were 85% of our market share was probably the US. And so we were shipping everything to the US. We shipped to Russia, to Israel, to Germany, to, all over the world. But the bulk of it was to the US. And then COVID hit, and I thought, that's the death of us. I said to my wife, I said, oh, this is it. It's all over, And so we basically turned everything off into the States, and then we started advertising into Australia. And now I would say it's 85% Australia.
How are you finding the marketing side of it? Like, you guys are very, very good on Instagram. That's the main place that I follow you guys. So you guys put out some awesome reels. What's the best way that you've kind of marketed Old Man Strength?
Look, it's definitely obviously the paid stuff through Facebook. Again, I go back to the early days and anyone who works in this space and advertises on Facebook can attest to this. It was like shooting fish in a barrel back then, prior to the iOS, whatever upgrade it was, 17 or 18. It was honestly, Facebook got all the data, so they knew who to target. Like, it was very, very dialed in. And my view is that since then, it's progressively gotten worse and worse and worse. But I think the game's changed a lot too, and what the algorithm and what Facebook and Instagram and all of those platforms want now is they want video content, right? So that's why you would have seen a massive upswing in our video content and what we're putting out. And it's just a relentless beast. It's every day you're just constantly doing content and content and content. But that's what you have to do in order to survive these days,
And is it your full-time gig now, Chris?
It is, yeah. So I walked away from I was a regional sales manager for in the railway, and I walked away from that gig just after COVID started. So I walked away from that, and I said to my wife, like, let's give this a crack full time. So I've got a consultancy on the side where I do some consulting for tenders and things like that. But yeah, this is my full-time gig now, myself and my wife.
And so you're wearing a rashie until you get through all your pre-sales, or what? Tell us about that.
Correct. Yeah. So again, I go back to sort of gravitating back towards doing rash guards and things like that. I think it's been 7 years since we've dropped a rashie. So that one you're wearing there is probably upwards of at least 7 years old.
It was when my husband was a white belt. He's now a purple belt. So yeah.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. We did a customer survey, and a lot of the customers were sort of coming back, and we were getting feedback on our Facebook ads and whatnot about, when are you guys doing rashies? When are you doing rashies? When are you doing rashies? I finally sort of caved in. I was like, okay. And obviously I do jiu-jitsu too. So it's in my interest to do rashies. So we decided to do a bit of a foray back into them. And, just one of the content pieces which you picked up on is I decided to wear my rashie around everywhere, every day, everywhere I go, until we sell it over our pre-orders. So it's, the other day I had a mate playing at a nightclub in Brisbane, so I wore it down there, and got a few weird looks, but that's all right.
Yeah, how's it going? You're channeling your inner John Danaher, yeah?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. I want to get a bum bag, but I don't actually own one, so I've got to try and find one. So I've got the haircut for it. So,
mate, that's awesome. Hey, how about you talk a little bit about jiu-jitsu too? So, you said about 2009. So how did you find jiu-jitsu? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so this is like your quintessential sort of martial arts story, I suppose. So I was out on Caxton Street one night, and it was like 3:00 in the morning. All my mates had gone home, and I was just, having a few drinks at the end of the bar on my own. And I was sort of standing there, and there was a sort of big dude down the other end of the bar, covered in tats, real big guy. And he sort of started looking over at me and, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? And I was like, oh, nothing, mate. And he came over and sort of, wanted to have a crack. And I was like, no, all good, mate, all good, And I left and I walked home, and I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I should have done this. I should have just smacked him in the eye. I should have, everything you sort of go through. And then my sober rational brain kicked in, and I sort of was like, mate, you don't know what you're doing. You would have got your head caved in, So that was on like a Friday, Saturday night. And then I'd sort of just gotten into watching UFC, and I was living in the city at the time. One of my mates lived downstairs, and he had the UFC on. I think it was BJ Penn and Kenny Florian or something around that time. And I remember watching BJ Penn, and I was thinking, man, this guy's a wizard. Like, how good's this guy? So that Monday I went and signed up for jiu-jitsu, and the rest is history, as they say. So
you and I started in the same year, actually. So I started in 2009 as well. So, yeah, it's
nice.
Funny old times. If you don't mind me saying, you're a big guy, yeah? Did you like play rugby or anything back in the day, or had you done anything physical like that before?
Yeah, look, I played rugby, and I did like 2 years of Muay Thai when I was like 18. But I went to the UK. I did my OE in the UK, and when I was over there, I just I was a tiny teenager. I was like 70 kilos. Went to the UK, I was tiny. I came home, I hit the weights. I got really big. I got to probably 90 kilos. But by the time that altercation had happened, I was like not really going to the gym, and I was a fat 90 kilos. You know what I mean? So I was just but now completely different story. Do you know what I mean?
So those early days, mate, so that is the quintessential sort of jiu-jitsu story, especially back in the day, And when you're a few beers in and something like that happens and you walk away from it, you do have that thing of like, but I could have just, and you're like, and now you do jiu-jitsu and you're like, No, you really couldn't have done anything, to be honest with you. So those early days of jiu-jitsu, and 2009 in Australia, it's still pretty early. Like it's still at the start really of jiu-jitsu. So what did the jiu-jitsu scene up in Brisbane look like in 2009?
So I started at a place called Advanced Martial Arts, and my coach at the time was a brown belt. And I think in that time that was around us, there would have been Sassom, Southside, and maybe a Gracie gym at Grange, but that was pretty much it. There weren't, like I sort of said before, you could swing a dead cat and hit a jiu-jitsu gym nowadays. Back then, there weren't many. And black belts in Brisbane at the time, obviously when I was new, I probably didn't know all the black belts, so there probably would have been more than I knew. But like I said, the gym that I started at was a very well-established big gym, and the head coach was a brown belt at the time. So
no, the scene definitely has exploded. So you then moved from Brisbane to the Sunshine Coast. When was that?
Correct. So that'll be about 8 years ago in July this year. June, July this year, we moved up here. So we just decided to have a sea change. We bought our house that we're in now up here on the coast in 2004. Came up for Christmas and then decided to move up. But my head coach now, where I train at Combat Lab on the Sunshine Coast under Joel Sepasvari. Joel and I used to train together. And so when I moved up here, I reached out to him and said, I'm going to move up. And he said, well, you have to come train with me. So I trained there and I got my black belt under Joel.
Tell us a bit about the scene on the Sunshine Coast now. We were sort of saying a little bit about it before we press record, but obviously it's grown heaps, but tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, look, the Sunshine Coast is, there's a heap of gyms up here now. I can name, there's probably, from where I live, there's probably at least 10 jiu-jitsu gyms that I can sort of think of quickly off the top of my head. So, and it just seems to be getting more and more and more. And obviously the rise of it with obviously the kids coming into it now, a lot of the gyms now have got those big kids programs. So I think that's probably supporting a lot of them. But you look at, I forget his name, but the guy from Daisy Fresh, the Aussie guy, I forget his name now. We met him at the Worlds. My brother knows him well, but I think he came out of Noosa. So there's a lot of really, really good jiu-jitsu guys up here as well. So yeah, the scene's really good, and there's a lot of good gyms and a lot of good coaches.
I think you're on mute, Brentos. You're on mute.
Spatchy, isn't it?
Spatchy, that's it. That's him. Yeah. That's the one.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a nice bloke.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, the scene up there looks very, very cool. So at your gym at the moment, before we get to that, were you competing back in the day as well? Was that something that you put some time and work into?
100%, yeah. So I competed basically from white belt to purple belt, and I competed in all of the local sort of tournaments, competed at states, Ampax, and then in 2016 I competed at the Worlds as a purple belt.
A World Masters or at Worlds?
Masters.
You were at that one, weren't you, Kim? Or did you go to World?
No, I went to World, Adult Worlds. I was crazy. I was like, crazy. I thought, doesn't matter that I'm 39 years old. I can still hang with the purple belt adults. So no, I could not. So yeah, there is quite a big difference for anyone out there between the adults and the masters, especially now. Do you do? So we've talked a lot about the jiu-jitsu. We've talked a bit about your business as well. What's your sort of week look like? Do you do a lot of strength and conditioning yourself? What goes on for you?
Yeah, 100%. So I try and do weights at least 3 to 4 times a week, and that's probably, I reckon, in the last 12 months I've really ramped that up. So I pretty much quit drinking last year, and I had a couple of occasions last year where I had a few beers. I went and did the shout out to BJ Escapes. Went to their training camp over in Thailand in March. Unreal for anyone thinking about doing that. Those guys are unbelievable, really run a tight camp. So, yeah, had a few beers over there and then drank, went to Metallica in November. But other than that, didn't really drink last year and haven't had a beer since November. So, yeah, I try and do weights on a regular basis 3 to 4 times a week. And I also, to sort of supplement that, I run. I try and do like a lot of running. I was doing ultras as well, so not a lot and not very well, but still the training for that too. So which obviously helps supplement jiu-jitsu and that cardio aspect of it.
Do you think you always had that mentality, Chris? Like lifting 4 times a week, becoming a black belt jiu-jitsu, running ultras, like it's a special person that can do one of those 3, let alone all of those 3, to be honest with you, mate. Plus a successful business and family and all those sorts of things. Did you sort of grow up with a never quit attitude, or was that something sort of drummed into you, or where did that come from?
I think it's probably like an innate feeling, like particularly getting a black belt. Like I think I've always wanted to achieve something like that. And then I think I've kind of learned over the years, like I only started doing ultras just recently, probably in the last 3-4 years. But, one thing that jiu-jitsu teaches you is that there's a lot of lessons in life that are extremely similar and you can sort of take into everything else, including my business. It's that sort of never quit attitude. You can't stop, one foot in front of the other, like as wanky as it sounds, the journey never ends, like kind of that stuff, and if you quit, you die. So it's kind of, you just have to keep pushing on. So I think I've probably had it there, but I think it's solidified in my mind and thought process doing everything that I do now. It's kind of like I can see the sort of symbiotic relationship between everything.
So how do you do it, Chris? Because like maybe it's me because I am a smaller female, look, I'm 51 and I just find for me, weight training is almost like a necessary for me to be able to continue doing jiu-jitsu so that I've got the strength around my joints, particularly to be able to handle, what I do on the mat. But I can really only do twice a week because otherwise I'm just too fatigued. How do you manage your recovery around particularly 3 to 4 weight training a week with whatever else you're doing?
Look, I just try and train smart about it. On days where I don't feel like, my body, I listen to my body. So on the days where, I believe it or not, I try and lift heavy on the days I do jiu-jitsu, because I've found that so I learned this from the All Blacks, actually. So the All Blacks, during one of their World Cups, their strength and conditioning coach was getting them to do a full-on weight session 4 hours before their games. So they were doing a full-on strength and conditioning session just before they're going to play an international game of rugby. So that I kind of thought, well, it obviously works for them. So I've started trying that, and I've found it works for me too. It's something about, and I'm not an expert in this, so, do your own research, but it's something about getting primed for that activity. And so I've found that like lifting really heavy on those days really helps me. But, I go back to, I just listen to my body. If I've got something wrong, I might not necessarily lift as heavy as I, had planned to, or, so I just kind of make sure that I'm just tapering it and making sure I'm taking the necessary sort of precautions to make sure that, because as you know, the injuries in jiu-jitsu are, they can pop up at any time. So you just got to make sure you stay on top of it.
Are you getting up early to lift? So like, are you the Jocko style? I'm up at 4:30, mate, cracking weights, and then that's not you?
No way. No, I hate mornings. Give me night times anytime. Give me midnight. I'm not lifting weights at midnight. I can't perform in the morning. I hate it. So, like I said, for me, it's just before jiu-jitsu. So we're getting off this podcast and then I'm training tonight. So I'll go and do a session before I go to training. And then I'll try and do a longer session on the weekends where I've got a bit more time. So that'll be my longer day. And then I'll just do a shorter kind of day in between that summer as well.
Do you find lifting before jiu-jitsu that maybe your strength is weakened a little bit, let's say, or you're a bit more fatigued? So now you're very technique based as opposed to using strength. Is that something that ever crosses your mind, or you've recovered enough?
No, I think I've recovered enough, and it's not that sort of like high rep, hypertrophy kind of workout. So it's not a cardio based workout. So I don't get to jiu-jitsu and feel like I've got heaps of lactic acid and I'm, really fatigued. I just feel like primed is the word. So I feel like I get there and I feel like when I roll, and look, this could be completely placebo as well, who knows? But if it works, I'm going to keep doing it till it stops. So, I feel really good and really strong when I start rolling.
You mentioned injuries. Have you had many injuries?
Yeah, so I've done my back twice, L5S1 on my right side, and that has sort of never gone away. and that will flare up. And my coach can attest to this. Flares up probably every 4 months. And that's just a mobility thing, really. I think at the end of the day, mobility and strength based. I don't do enough mobility and strength style recovery stuff for it. And, as we all know with jiu-jitsu injuries, once it gets better, you're kind of like, oh, well, we're back, and then we're off again, and then you get injured, you're like, okay, no, this time I'm going to actually rehab it properly and I'm going to fix this. And then you never do. It gets better and you're straight back on the mats, Yeah,
it's funny that, isn't it? Were they is that sort of bulging disc sort of scenarios that you were having there, Chris?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I've done that in my back, and then my neck. I don't know what I've done to my neck, but that happened years and years ago, and I can't really put my neck back anymore. So neck and back. But other than that, touch wood, my knees and everything have been fine. Knees, shoulders, all good.
So, Chris, what advice would you give to our listeners who are in that sort of older category? We do have a lot, I'd say the majority of our listeners are probably over 35 years of age, which are not, I don't consider that old, but just in terms of around managing their time with regard to strength training and jiu-jitsu.
Look, I think it's hugely important. I think if you want to stay competitive with the younger guys, because obviously you're competing against a natural kind of level of strength and so on and so forth. So I think if you want to try and remain competitive, I think it's hand in glove. They need to go together. And I've certainly noticed, I said before that for me, it's been 12 months where I've really sort of knuckled down and focused on it heavily, and I've noticed the difference. And so I go back to times when, times in my journey where I was going through the ups and downs and the plateaus, and during those down moments, I was trying to, I remember having a spreadsheet, and I would take notes every time I got home from training on not necessarily the class, but what I did that day. Like did I roll well? Yes. Why did I roll well? What did I do that day? What were the preceding days leading up to that in terms of sleep, diet, strength and conditioning, cardio, all of those sorts of things. And I was trying to get a bit of a baseline as to what worked for me. And I think, I think it works for everybody. I think if you get all of those things sort of connected together, that you'll see a huge improvement in your game.
Was there a couple of things from that data that really stood out to you?
Strength and sleep, I reckon. Sleep's another big one. Times where I got really bad sleep, dehydration too. So if I was really going into something dehydrated and terrible sleep, if I'd come off the back of a bad weekend, drinking, if I'd come off a massive weekend, I'd been on the piss all weekend and turned up training on a Monday and it was just dog shit. It all, you pay the price, so what you get in is what you put in is what you get out. So I think, it's about sort of identifying those areas and trying to cut it down.
Just on the drinking, Chris, how do you do that? Because in Australia, it is hard, it's a pretty heavy drinking culture.
Very.
How have you found that, particularly around social settings, to be that teetotaler? And also, you sort of touched on it, but what sort of things have you found in yourself as a result of being sober for so long now?
Initially, it's always hard, to go out and be social, because you find that, everybody starts off at a level and then it starts to go like this, everyone sort of pulls away from you, and then you find that everybody's sort of having their own conversation, and they're not being rude, and they're not they're not excluding you. It's just they're on a different level, So you kind of got to deal with that a little bit. But I think the fact that there's so many options for zero alcohol drinks now in Australia, it's my understanding it's the fastest rising sector in the alcohol sector at the moment. And so, that doesn't say something to you, but I think it's about finding ones that you like, and it's about really trying to break the habits that you have. So the ones for me are Thursday night footy, Sunday over footy, sitting down, having a beer, watching the foot. That was my crux. So now I've sort of broken the back of that. I just drink zeros, and it's kind of like drinking 2 cans of Coke. You have a can of Coke and then you have another one. You're like, I don't want any more Coke. So that's kind of like what drinking zero beers is like. You kind of scratch that itch and then you're done,
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. It's something for me because I certainly enjoy having a drink every now and again. But when I'm starting to zero in on a competition, so I'll cut alcohol out or whatever it might be, and I'm actually really comfortable doing that. It doesn't faze me at all. But I'm very careful of then the the social situations that I'll put myself in. You know, like I can go out for dinner and not drink. That's no problem. Like my wife might have a beer on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon and it doesn't faze me. But, you know, catching up with friends at a pub in that social environment, like those are the ones for me that I'm like, oh, this is a little bit harder, you know. One of the things, if we were going out to a friend's house or something like that, if I'm like, you can have one beer, I would have that one beer, usually a glass bottle, but then I just fill that beer bottle up with water over and over and over again. So I feel like I'm drinking. I'm not missing out. You know, it's tricking my brain into like, yeah, you're drinking. You're doing the same thing that everyone else is doing. So it's kind of like no problem anymore, you know. So I found that was a good tip for me.
100%. Yeah, it's that having something in your hand. You know, and you go back to it's such Australia. It is a massive drinking culture, and like I'm 45, so you know I grew up with all of that, and like most other blokes our age, you know, it's just ingrained into you. You turn 18, you go to the pub, you smash yourself. Like it is what it is, you know. But yeah, look, it's. I'm not going to say I'm never going to drink again because I might decide that I'm going to have a couple of beers one day. But for me, it was about just getting a handle on it and making sure that I can try and, you know, dial in on everything else. And the other thing that I drink too is kava. Yeah, kava at night time. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I had a quite a long period where I didn't drink at all. And to be honest, I actually found it made people quite uncomfortable when I was not drinking. It was almost frowned upon in some circles. So to me, it almost became that I would almost avoid going out socially because I just didn't want to always have the pushback of like, I just have one drink sort of thing. A lot of people seem to, I don't know, almost want to take it upon themselves to break my resolve. Did you find that at all? And if so, how did you manage it?
It's funny. Like I would say 99% of my friends and social circle have been super supportive, you know, like they haven't tried to break me, haven't tried to, oh, come on, mate, have a beer. It's like, I just say, oh, look, I'm not drinking. And then like, you know, like we had our gym Christmas party in December and I didn't drink of that. I turned up, went down the road, got 6-pack of non-alcoholic beers, brought them along, you know. Everyone was like, oh, you haven't been? I was like, no, I'm on the zeros, you know. And everyone was like, oh, sweet. And it's funny how you can rub off on some people, you know. Some people are like, oh, yeah, I think I might give that a crack. It's like, you know, you do you. This is not about preaching to everybody about stop drinking because it's definitely not that. You know, you've got to make that decision for yourself. And I made that decision for myself, you know. But I find I'm a better husband, better dad, you know, all the things that come with it. I watched this guy the other day and he sort of said, you'll never meet a person who's given up drugs or alcohol and says that they regret it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah. I find it's funny that you say that, Kim. And I don't know when it was that you sort of weren't drinking, but I think the culture of people not drinking now is quite prolific. Like I know quite a few people who basically just don't drink, you know?
Yeah, no, it was like 30 years ago. And what you're saying, Chris, I think, I think maybe I needed to surround myself with some better people at the time.
Yeah, 30 years ago, for sure, I'm making you drink.
Me too.
Yeah, I think now the culture, like, I don't know the statistics, but it seems like most of the younger crowd are not really drinking like what we did when we were 20, you know? So, I mean, you know, when you're in New Zealand, you turn 21, like you sculled a yard glass of beer. I mean,
correct.
I don't think those sort of things are happening at all over here now, you know? So, which is great. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I think people are more into their health or the younger generation particularly, like you say, are more into their health and well-being and, you know, which is not a bad thing. And like I said, it's not about, I think, everything in moderation if you can handle it. Like my issue was I was using it as a, you know, like most people, I suppose, who use it in the wrong way. It was like unhappy with certain things and then they just start, you know, drinking. And they'll next minute it's like midnight and you've drunk 6 beers and 3/4 of a bottle of wine on a Tuesday night. You know, it's like, and then you're trying to, you know, you're not going to be able to go running. You can't lift. You can't go to jiu-jitsu. Well, you might go to jiu-jitsu, but you'll be dog shit. You know, you'll just get pumped because your cardio is shit. Like, it's all those things. So you pay a price.
So we've got Old Man Strength T-shirts. So we're getting an Old Man Strength, like 0% alcohol beer at some stage, mate. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
You know, like Jocko's kind of got the market on a few of those things, you know, like he's got his Malk and all that sort of stuff. I reckon if we get an OMS near beer, you know, like,
beer, yeah. Well, I thought about I talked to a few mates about a protein beer. I reckon that'd go right in pubs.
Yeah, imagine
I don't know how you
Awesome.
do it, but
You heard it here first, guys. So you've done amazing things for the fitness and health community, Chris. Thank you so much for everything that you do. It's awesome to have had this chance to get to chat with you. We're nearly out of time, but we've just got a couple of questions that Brentos is going to ask. I think I know the answer to one of these questions already, but let's see. Maybe you'll surprise me, Chris. Go for it.
okay.
You never know. All right, mate, here we go. iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone.
Strength or flexibility?
Oh, do I want or do I have?
Do you recommend?
Oh, bloody hell. Strength.
Yeah, it's got to be on brand, mate. It's got to be on
100%.
brand.
Yeah.
Pasta or rice?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Nice. Steak or chicken? Ghee or no ghee?
Ooh, tough one as well. Ghee.
Guard pull or takedown?
Again, which one do I want to do or which one can I do? My takedown's a shit house, so I'm going to have to go guard pull.
Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You're amongst guard pullers here. So
I was just thinking, Brentos, with your questions, people hesitate on nearly all of them except the steak or chicken. Nearly, I reckon 95% of our guests have answered steak. It's always like a no-brainer, like steak, of course. All the others have a bit of a question mark.
What's your favourite belt that you've been at?
Purple belt.
Beautiful. And why is that?
Oh, I just reckon it's the most no pressure, a lot of fun. You know, it's kind of, jiu-jitsu's like again, you go back to life. Like being a white belt's like being a toddler, being a blue belt's being like a 10-year-old, being a purple belt's being like a 16-year-old. You know, you're kind of like part of the like adult crew, but not really. But then you're not a kid. You're kind of really good at it, but you're not. You know, there's no pressure. It's a great belt. A lot of fun.
That's a good way to explain it, actually. That's really cool. A few more, mate. Have you got a favourite sports team?
All Blacks.
Yeah, I just had to throw that one in, Kim. And Theo, I know you're editing this, Theo. Can you just make that one a little bit louder?
My husband is South African, Chris, so Brentos and he have many, many rivalries. Yeah.
I bet.
We might be competing with Vix in a couple of weeks, so I need to tone it back a little bit for a while. Hopefully he forgets. Right, mate, we've got two more for you. Here we go. The first one, you grew up in New Zealand. This should be a no-brainer. Can you drive a manual car?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. And the second one, do you wear Crocs?
Do I wear Crocs?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Oh, what a legend.
I love it.
What a legend. What a legend. Get your merchandise, people. Get these t-shirts. They're the best.
And please do buy a pre-sale of these rashis so that Chris can take off his rashi because maybe by the time this episode comes out, you'll be... How far off are you from reaching your goal?
Yeah, we're pretty close.
So by the time this is out, it may be that you're out of the rashi.
Yeah, but they'll still be up there for sale, but you just missed out on the pre-order side of things. So we did all the pre-orders so people could get in and make sure they definitely got theirs. But then after that, it's kind of come what may because we've only ordered a certain amount. So make sure you don't miss out.
Yeah.
Mate, can you give us a rundown? Where can people find you? Give us a website or the best place for us to go and buy some fantastic OMS stuff.
Yeah, sure. So the website's www.oldmanstrength.com.au. And probably our best socials is on Instagram at oldmanstrengthofficial.
Yeah,
fantastic.
The socials are excellent. Chris stars in pretty much all of the videos. They're very good. You do some really good ones, mate. So, yeah, very, very good. Jump on and check those out. Thank you, Kim, again. Is there anything you'd like to add, Kim?
No, thank you so much, Chris. Like I said, my husband will be loving this episode and I'm hoping a lot of our listeners are too. Thanks for giving up your time. And we look forward to representing you on I'm an old woman strength side of things for me, but hey, I'll take it. And I know that Brentos and Theo are the same. They love it. So yeah, thanks again.
No worries. Thanks, guys. That was a lot of fun.
We've seen your guns, Kim. We know who the strongest person in this room is by far, so that's all good. That's it, guys, for another episode of Roll or Die. Thank you again, Chris. Remember, www.oldmanstrength.com.au. I can absolutely attest to the quality of these. I wear this a lot. Both of my T-shirts, I think I've got 2 or 3, I can't remember. I think it's 3, and they are all still in very, very good condition. And I'm very rough with t-shirts, so the quality is good. You can wear them everywhere, any social environment that you find yourself in, whether you're at the pub not drinking or drinking, at the gym, wherever. Throw on your OMS t-shirt. It's guaranteed another 10% strength if you're lifting for sure. That's it. That's another episode of Roll or Die. This is a good one. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Please remember, guys, like, rate, and share. And we will see you next week for another episode of Roll or Die. Peace.
Thank you.